The story begins with a group of adventurers fighting monsters in a dungeon. The guy destroyed a whole group of monsters with a single jerk of his sword. His companions were dumbfounded to see this. They wondered how many monsters he had just killed. Miyamoto is absolutely amazing. Suddenly, the main character felt something and, looking up, saw a guy who threw a huge boulder straight at the monsters. Everyone was surprised and said that Onizuka was also good. It has very incredible powers, which is to be expected from an ogre god skill. A girl from their squad called out to the others and activated her blessing. The main character barely activated his power and stabbed the monster in the back, after which his hands began to shake. Finally, when the monsters were defeated, Onizuka said that it was all because of his amazing strength. He suggested that Miyamoto leave these weaklings and go straight to the boss. Miyamoto said that there was nothing to be done and everything should be in order, although he won't deny that it's not as difficult as it sounds. Onizuka shouted to the crowd to gather, "They are too slow and must hurry." The girl ran towards them and asked with sweet eyes, "Why don't they make a stop?" Everyone had been fighting ever since they first came here. The boys looked at the girl named Minace with hope in their eyes. She thinks it will help them in their next battles, so they should take a break. Miyamoto still agreed with her, and the other adventurers were very happy about it. The main character sat down on the ground away from everyone and drank water from a bottle. It's been a long time since then. They are in this world because they were called. Until now, he should have been an ordinary high school student. After school, he decided that he needed to hurry home and start that new game. He heard a certain tremor, and then that day they were swallowed up by the light. They were summoned to another world. The king looked at the students in surprise and greeted them, calling them heroes. Students began to ask what had happened and why they were here. Why aren't they at school? What has this old man done? They are obliged to let them go home because they are late. Their phones began to run out of battery and they continued to question the old man about what was happening. Miyamoto shouted to the others that they needed to sort out what was going on or talk to this person first. He asked if he could ask him a question, as expected of the school board president. The main character thinks that this guy can be called charismatic since he restored the guy's composure with one word. They calmed down and learned a lot about this world. There are many different races and cultures in this world, and they were called up when the empire was in danger. They then gained skills that became the reason why they were called heroes. The main character named Yudo Nakatani received the skill of absorption. It turns out that everyone who was summoned by this world received a special power. But what does this takeover even mean? Suddenly, they heard a loud shout, and then Miyamoto cut open the helmet of one of the warriors. Everyone started shouting to this hero that this is a great job. He has the heroism skill. It looks like it's a skill, and everyone has a different one. Each of them has its own power in this world. Magic, martial arts, body restoration and strengthening techniques. All the people in their class got strong skills and it's no wonder they are called heroes. Compared to them, Yudo got the weakest skill that can just attract different items. Everyone around him looked at him menacingly and started saying that he was weak and would die first. Yudo is sure that even with this power, he should do his best. The man started shouting at Onizuka and asked, didn't he say that if they beat even one monster, the others nearby would feel it? So they need to be more focused. Onizuka ordered him to shut up and said it was his fault. He grabbed him by the scruff of the neck and ordered him not to tell him what to do or else he would kill him. The man asked him to let him go and said that now was not the time for arguments. Someone shouted to the heroes that it was time for them to get up. Monsters are coming and they must prepare for battle. Yudo was dumbfounded when he saw the scary monsters approaching them. Miyamoto immediately drew his sword from its scabbard and chopped off the monsters' heads, shouting to the others that they had nothing to fear and could do anything. As they moved forward, Yudo thought that even here, he wasn't like everyone else, but he would try. Suddenly, the monster behind him giggled and leaped straight at him, but Yudo managed to turn around and block the blow. He jumped away from the monster to a safe distance and saw that his sword started to crack, then finally broke. The monster giggled even harder and charged again, while Yudo watched in horror. A fighter from his squad helped him and blocked the blow with his skill, and Yudo's body began to tremble. He realized that this was simply impossible and he had no strength left. A black monster with a mark on its forehead moved straight towards Minace and Yudo shouted to her that there was a monster. It happened in the blink of an eye. Yudo won't be able to attack the monster with such force, so he'll move Minace out of the monster's attack path. It's the best thing he could have done back then. Minace continued to treat the injured person, and the monster jumped straight at Yudo. The last thing he saw were the monster's clawed feet. Blood was spilled and he wondered what he had done. Guys like him should pretend to be rags. He had lived like this before. He realized that he couldn't move. He opened his eyes and heard the characters talking. They wanted to leave him and move on, but Minace said that he had protected her and she couldn't leave him. Miyamoto said that there was a curse on him that couldn't be cured. The monster must have done it. Yudo wondered if he was cursed. The man assumed that he was cursed from the beginning, so they should just leave him here. Miyamoto turned to Yuto and said that he understood Yuto's feelings, but if this curse couldn't be cured, then the squad had to drop it. The heroine agreed with him because they can't do anything and Yuto was weak. Yuto thought that they must be joking. Mine started shouting that Yuto was their friend, so why are they doing this? Onizuka called her a fool and said that he didn't consider weaklings his friends. Besides, isn't it his fault that he's going to die? The heroes supported him and said that Yuto was a pathetic weakling who wanted to drag Mines down with him. He's just a slug. Yuto looks at them in horror and thinks, what are they even talking about? He did his best, didn't he? Even though he was trying to save Mines, but why? Mines started crying and said that if only she could cure him. Miyamoto cut her off and put his arm around her shoulders. She did everything she could and must survive for Yuto's sake. The mage girl started to lead her away from this place, and Yuto looked at them and thought that he didn't want to die. Miyamoto squatted down and said that Yuto was the anchor of the team. Mines is a valuable healer, and he's only hurting her heart with his behavior. He hates useless trash like him. At least he should get hurt and die. The man turned to him and said that they should hurry up, because the curse can be transmitted. Miyamoto smiled sweetly and apologized because he was just saying goodbye to a classmate for the last time. Yuto wondered what that even meant. The heroes started praising Miyamoto for doing what was expected of the president. He is very kind. Yuto has a sore throat and can't move. He is very cold and can't breathe. If only he could talk. Would they let him die like this? Onizuka turned to Miyamoto and said that he had a good idea. The man again shouted at him not to go there because it was a contagious curse. Onizuka still approached Yuto and asked, he was also called a hero, right? Why don't they kill him themselves? This will be the so-called experience gathering. The heroes started shouting at him not to do this, and Yuto mentally begged him not to approach him. He begged his body to move because he didn't want to, but it was no use. Onizuka picked him up by the throat while he thought that he hated it all and didn't want to die. Unexpectedly, at that moment, a voice in his head said that in that case, he should use his power. Yuto thought about it, his own strength. The voice repeated that if he didn't want to die, then he should use his powers. Yuto thought that even though he was weak, maybe he really should try it. Even with such minimal strength, he would be able to pull off some kind of trick and make everyone laugh at least before he died. Onizuka's eyes widened in fear and he asked the jerk what he was doing. The heroes saw a bright pillar of light, as if from an explosion, and began to shout, what was it? Onizuka started yelling at the freak to stay away from him. What did he do? Yuto looked down at his hands, which were sparkling with electricity, and was dumbfounded that he could move. Onizuka charged in and said that since his life was useless, at least let it be his experience. Yuto closed his eyes in fear, but when he opened them, he saw that he had blocked this attack with his hand. Onizuka's hand started to shake and he asked him to let go. Miyamoto and everyone watching this battle couldn't believe that the ogre god Onizuka had been stopped. But how did it happen? Yuto released him and a voice in his head said that absorption was his real power. He absorbed Onizuka's ogre god skill. Onizuka started shouting that this jerk was hiding his strength and wanted to humiliate him by pretending to be a weakling. Let him go to hell, he would definitely kill him today. Yuto just wouldn't let himself die today, and instead, since he had the chance, he would rather kill Onizuka with his own hands. He threw Onizuka into the cave wall with great force, and his body shattered the rocks. The people around him couldn't believe it, and Onizuka started coughing up blood. The man laughed and approached Yuto, saying that he had never thought that he had such incredible strength. Surpassing Onizuka is definitely a real hero's talent. Yuto shrugged off his hand and said that he was glad to hear it. This jerk wanted to leave him to die, he hates him. After saying that, he started to walk away, and Miyamoto called out to him, where are you going? He wouldn't let him do whatever he wanted. Does he hear it? Mines also tried to talk to him, but Yuto just turned to look at her and continued walking through the dungeon without saying a word. Miyamoto asked her to take care of Onizuka and approached the commander. It's dangerous for them to leave Yuto alone. If he had the strength to defeat Onizuka, then he could become their powerful enemy. The next time they meet, At this time, Yuto goes further into the dungeon and thinks that he has started to freeze. How long has it been running? Fortunately, he didn't encounter any monsters along the way. A voice in his head said he'd taken care of it. Yuto asked what. After that, his eyes widened in fear when he saw the corpses of the monsters in the dungeon. The voice called him an outsider and told him to be faster. Yuto saw a huge gate with a skull and chains. His strongest skill had awakened, but what was hidden behind the door that appeared in front of him? The voice kept telling the stranger that the door wasn't locked and he had to open it. Let him open the forbidden door. After some time, the team came out of the dungeon and a girl named Akane said that the air here is very rotten. In any case, Nakatani Yuto is dead, right? What kind of dungeon is this? This is the most dangerous place in the country, right? The hero asked her what she meant by that. Let the head of the knights explain. The commander said that of course, the deepest part of the dungeon is marked as a particularly restricted area, But where did the Saga get this information? Akane Sagi has a special observation skill that allows her to unravel the hidden designs and intentions of targets. She said, who knows? She went to Manasa and told him that she didn't have to worry about Yudo anymore. She did everything she could. She doesn't care about a guy who's gone off somewhere without permission. Miyamoto shouted that it was true. He was very selfish and left them here, ignoring his warning. Akane said that to be honest, she thinks everyone can do whatever they want. Miyamoto got angry and turned around, asking what was she talking about. He saw that all the squad members were simply silent and looking at him. Onizuka smashed the ground with his fist with incredible force and sent it all to hell. Why didn't he have his power back then? Next time, he would definitely kill him. The heroes began to talk about how he had definitely lost his mind. But Yudo beat Onizuka, maybe he's even stronger than Miyamoto. Minas looked at the dungeon and thought about it. Akane smiled and asked, wouldn't it be interesting if it turned out that he was still alive? What she means is that it looks like they've entered the Demon King's dungeon. At this time, Yudo was standing in front of that mysterious door and still went inside, looking around dumbfounded. He asked where it was located. At the end of a long corridor, a smiling girl with a mark on her neck sat. Yudo wondered what kind of place this was. Why does it smell so bad in here? This terrifying fear even sent chills down his spine, but he shouldn't be afraid. The voice asked him to come closer. Yudo remembered Minas apologizing to him, but still, he had nowhere to go back to. That is why it can only go forward. The girl sitting on the dilapidated throne thanked him for coming here. She had been waiting for this outsider and they had finally met. He was her hope. She was completely naked, so Yudo covered his eyes and started yelling that he didn't see anything. The girl did not understand his words and said that it was a disaster. She knows he's not from this world. Yudo thanked her for saving him that time. The girl sympathizes with him because he found himself on an unfamiliar land and his comrades set their sights on him. She didn't do anything and just pushed him forward slightly. Yudo started to mumble that if it wasn't for her, he would be dead by now. The girl said that he won't die because he has a very powerful skill. Why shouldn't he join her? He asked her what she meant by that. The girl said that she needed his help to take revenge on the Empire. The Holy Empire of Valencia is the place where he was called, which is responsible for him. She must destroy this empire. Yudo said it was too dangerous, but she asked him, isn't he resentful of the Empire? Yudo recalled all those moments of betrayal of his squad and wondered, resentment. He would be lying if he said no. In that case, they will become comrades. Her introduction is a bit late. Her name is Melia. Yudo introduced himself to her in response and she said that he had a very cute name and she would remember it. Yudo wondered what was wrong with her. Revenge of the Empire. Resentment. The throne. He asked me what was going on here anyway. Melia said she was a demon. She is the daughter of the Demon King who once ruled this land. This place was the capital of the kingdom where they, the demons, lived. 400 years ago, there was a city whose sky glowed with stars and a full moon. The capital of the Lunaria Kingdom was a demon paradise created by her father. The people of the demon tribe helped each other, and the capital of the kingdom was free of conflict. Her father said it was all for the welfare of the demons. It was a beautiful city that any race would be proud of. But their paradise was destroyed in just one night. The king stared dumbfounded at what was happening, and his charges shouted to him that it was dangerous. The Empire attacked them and they did what they wanted. The king saw dead demons and smiling enemies. They violated their paradise. Their barbarity didn't stop at the capital. The surviving demons were treated like slaves and all met their gruesome end. Eventually, the world found out about the Empire's barbarity, but they said that the demons were cannibal barbarians. Valencia has twisted the truth and become a hero country. They, demons, are one of a kind, like beastmen or fairies. It's not normal in their nature to kill people. On the other hand, there were many demons who lived peacefully with humans and humans took advantage of this. It's the same with her. Her power is sealed and she is trapped in this place. It's funny, but she wants to build another Lunaria on this earth so that the demons will find peace again. She will gather her brothers and sisters who are currently being persecuted. This is her wish. It seems to her that for him this is all some kind of demonic nonsense and it is unlikely that he will believe in such a story. Yudo said that he believed and would help her. Besides, he has nowhere to go, so he wants her to be his path. He held out his hand to her, but remembered that she couldn't shake his hand. Even though he said that he would help her, but what should he do first? Melia said they would discuss their plans first. They need to provide strength to resist the Empire, then they will need more strength and more allies. He asked her if she had any friends. She's been here for 400 years, so how should she have any friends? They must first remove the sealing spell from her. This is a special spell and can only be removed with a very strong dispel skill. In order to regain the power of the Demon King's daughter, she wants Yudo to acquire skills that will help break the spell. Yudo asked, but how can he acquire these skills? Together, they said the name of his skill Absorption. The current Yudo doesn't have enough power to deal with the spell, so she wants him to become stronger. Unexpectedly, they felt a shiver and realized that the monsters had woken up. Melia said that the monsters in the dungeons appear periodically and it happened just in time. Its power is absorption. It's such a powerful skill that it literally takes away the power of others, and that's why she wants it to absorb her power. He asked, but if he does? She interrupted him and told him not to worry. Those who have absorbed the power lose it for a certain amount of time. Yudo wondered if Onizuka's skill was already missing. He looked into the system and realized that his skill was still with him. The power remains with the person who has absorbed it, so it is a powerful skill. It doesn't matter how much it consumes, because skills have compatibility. They need him to hone his skills in order to master them. If he has even one skill, then he doesn't need to worry about it for the rest of his life. He will have this skill for as long as he wants. This is the takeover. The monsters broke into the room and she asked him to give her a hand. Let him put his hand on her breast. This is to make it absorb as much power as possible. This is effective in direct contact, so he should hurry up. Yudo doubted that she was a girl. She asked him what he was waiting for. If he didn't hurry, he would be devoured by the monsters. Yudo still placed his hand on her chest, which was wearing a horn. He activated his skill and black energy surged out of Melia's body. Yudo doesn't understand what it is. Everything seems to flow in his head. He began to see her memories, which were not the most colorful, but there were tears in his eyes, and she thanked him. She lost all her magic powers, even if only for a short time. Someone without magic doesn't need chains. She stood up from her throne and congratulated him on his takeover. Thanks to him, she was finally free. She asked me how it felt. Yudo was very surprised when dark energy gushed out from his hand. It seems to her that he has enough magical energy, but he needs to learn how to control it. Yudo began to reassure himself that he could do it. Magic enhancement and transformation of magic power are his new skills that will be useful for him. Melia said that it was time for them to leave since his current strength was enough to kill those monsters. Yudo said that he still can't control this power, but it's fine because it will be together with him. Yudo looked at the monsters and made up his mind to fight for their common goal. He is the chosen one if he has at least one skill. He doesn't have to worry about anything, and he can take over everything. Step by step, he begins to understand. Black Burial is a skill that controls shadows. He can correct his lack of physical strength with the Ogre God skill. He activated Black Burial and crushed the monsters with his power. After that, he activated Absorption, and after killing all the monsters, he was very tired. Melia said that there are no more monsters and it's a good job. They decided to look at his stats and saw that his level had risen to 87. He also gained Hard Claw and Flash skills, as well as Lightning Strike and Whirlwind. He has so many skills because he tried to absorb all the monsters during the fight. With this amount of magic power, he would be able to handle everything without any problems. The Hard Claw fires a pulse of force that splits the sky and rips off the ground. A flash shines even in the depths of the abyss, and a lightning strike releases unstoppable lightning. Stormwind can be a spear, shield, or wings, depending on how you use it. These are all strong skills that go well with the Ogre God. She hugged him and asked him not to stop there because they are trying to destroy the whole country. He might want to destroy this country right now, but he can't be satisfied with just that, and he needs more skills. Yudo was embarrassed and asked her to put something on, but she asked why. Yudo shouted, "What do you mean, why?" He doesn't even know where to look and she might catch a cold. Melia finally agreed and put on a black robe with a hood. He's right, it's not polite to go naked. 400 years of incarceration is a long time, and her senses are dulled. She asked if it was okay now. Yudo is still embarrassed by her cleavage, but it's okay. Melia said that the monsters won't appear here anymore and they can go. They will go in the other direction because this dungeon has several entrances. If they return to its entrance point, they would walk right into the heart of the Empire. This way is more convenient and he will see for himself. Each monster here is stronger than the previous one and easier to absorb. Melia said the monster was coming and they should get ready. Yudo activated the vortex and realized that it was really more convenient. After that, he activated Lightning Strike and wondered what skill he would be able to absorb from this monster. He would find out right now. Melia tried to warn him of the danger, but before she could, Yudo was thrown out of the way. He was surprised that this monster could attack at long range. If so, before this monster attacks him again, it will steal his power by absorbing it. He used the vortex to move directly towards the monster and activated the absorption skill because it was payback time. After defeating the monster, he exhaled and said that this monster was more formidable than the ones they had encountered before. Melia agreed, but the monsters ahead will be even stronger. The road leads to the great forest of Dingert, which lies outside the Empire. This is the forest where the demons used to hunt. Her father loved hunting, so he built a secret passage to the forest for the royal family. When her mother found out about this, she had already turned into a demon and the king was being hunted. Yuto wanted to apologize to her, but she told him not to worry because she was already tired of shedding tears for the past. If they took revenge on the Empire, then she was sure that her father and mother would be at ease. Previously, Yuto wouldn't have been able to believe that hatred can burn the heart. On that day, he was summoned to this world because of the Empire's selfishness. He was scared to death and was really dying. He was abandoned by the Empire and his classmates, then his heart burned out. He never wants to think about it again. If he didn't, they would just kill him. He needs to get stronger, much stronger. He reached level 196 and gained many new skills. Ice crystal, loss of sensation, transparency, shaping, enhanced vision, burning flames, floating, or creation. He wasn't used to dealing with everyone yet, so he needed to practice a little more. Melia praised him and said that he was very hardworking. Yuto said that there are a lot of monsters and sometimes he fails. Immediately after that, he crashed to the ground and Melia realized that it was a sudden loss of consciousness. Yuto knows that living like you didn't see anything is easy. If someone like him gets in the way, then nothing will change anyway. Hypocrisy can't save anything, no matter how disappointing it is, because that's the reality. That was how he always justified his weakness. After a while, he opened his eyes and Melia greeted him. He realized that he had fallen asleep. Melia activated the black burial defensive wall and told him not to worry, because monsters of such a low level wouldn't defeat him. Yuto thinks that it would be better if he didn't wake up, but still he apologizes and says that he hasn't slept since he entered the dungeon. Melia said he didn't need to apologize, it's just that he hasn't mastered the magic transformation skill yet. Once he could use this skill, he would never feel sleepy again. He was surprised and asked if she was saying that as long as he had magic energy, he wouldn't feel sleepy. He would really like to have this skill in his old world, because he wouldn't have to get hit on the head by a teacher for sleeping in class. Melia says that magic transformation is a skill that returns magic power to the body. It will be easier to say that the magic power adds the necessary energy to keep him awake and full. Absorbing adds skills, but it doesn't make sense if he doesn't learn how to use it. Melia said no out loud and he asked her what she meant. She said there was no bridge. Everything was rotten and the bridge had been broken for a long time. The problem is that they are almost outside. He asked them what they should do now. It's dangerous for them to go down, isn't it? Melia grabbed his clothes and jumped off the cliff because they would have to do it so they could cross without a bridge. They landed down at high speed and Yuto asked her to warn him about it in advance next time. Melia landed on him and said that he was too passive. Yuto really thought he was going to die. He opened his eyes and saw many skeletons and a warrior leaning over them, leaning on his sword. He exclaimed in horror, "Bones." Melia said they were human bones, but he didn't need that information. Broken weapons, bloodstains on the floor. Judging by the tracks, it happened after the war. Moreover, the armor of this knight belongs to the Empire, but the skin was not removed, it may have melted. She knew it. The ground began to shake and Yuto saw a huge dragon land next to them. It turns out that they fell straight into the dragon's nest. Maria said they were right to jump down here. The corpse dragons were on a different level compared to the monsters they had encountered before. On the other hand, Yuto will be able to get very powerful skills from this dragon. The dragon started growling, and Yuto asked, "Isn't it dangerous?" Melia said that it was fine, because Yuto wasn't someone that could be defeated by such a monster. This monster can't be defeated, but can Yuto kill it? When he saw the dragon, he thought that it was simply impossible. This dragon is incredibly huge. He thought back to his teenage life and wondered what he was so afraid of. He can't change the outcome without doing something. He had learned a lot since coming to this world. He was able to protect Mines, fight and defeat entire groups of monsters. He will be able to do this and will use all his skills against this dragon. After doing this, a huge explosion occurred and Yuto was sure that it would be enough. The dust from the explosion dissipated, and Yuto saw that the flesh on his body had simply disappeared and exposed his ribs. The dragon started to roar and Yuto thought that he was going to die right now. Blood spurted out from the dragon's strike and Melia closed her eyes, but when she opened them again, she saw Yuto jumping away from the attack. There's no way he's going to give up, even though his legs are shaking and he's terrified. He understands that he simply can't stop and do nothing in a place like this. The black burial stopped his bleeding, and then he would remove the pain with the loss of sensation. He had started activating all his skills, but still, he wouldn't be able to fight for long with such injuries. He has to figure out what will be the most effective and best for a fatal wound. He must find a way to defeat this dragon. His eyes widened in shock as the dragon was reborn again after his attacks. A corpse dragon, commonly known as an immortal dragon. The characteristic of this dragon is immortality. Weed is a forbidden class creation that regenerates an unimaginable amount of magic power. It's a forbidden class monster that even an imperial knight couldn't defeat. The dragon released a bright pillar of magical energy at him, but Yuto held out his hand. The entire space was lit up with a bright glow and Melia praised him, because he made a doll out of clay. Yudo activated ore creation and explosive mix. If you attack opponents in the regeneration state, then you will not have time to act. He activated an explosion and called the dragon over. Now, he just has to take this monster's skill for himself. He activated engulfing and touched the dragon to start his game. After activating hover, he thought that he shouldn't relax. He got the immortality skill and something else. Now he will try the power of this dragon on himself. He activated the flame corroding skill and the entire space started to burn, but that wasn't all. He activated this skill again until he was absolutely sure that the dragon was dead. He will activate this skill as many times as he needs to. It's still not enough, so Yudo will give it his all. The dragon started to sink into the flames and Melia said that as expected, it was a good job. The immortality skill is now his. He looked down at his torn side and noticed that all the wounds had healed and not even a trace was left. Melia said that it was as expected of a forbidden skill. The immortal corpse dragon literally regenerates the body as long as there is magic energy in the body. She had forgotten to tell him that the corpse dragon was a type of taboo, a common name for a monster with incredible power beyond human control. In other words, he had obtained forbidden powers. Yudo couldn't believe that he would be able to possess such power. Melia called him on his way, for the great forest of Dingard is just around the corner. He will go to the farthest places with a new power and a new ally. Somewhere in the Empire, a group of heroes was training. The knight says that he can't believe they can handle the skills so easily. To be honest, the commander was skeptical at first, but it seems that he did not underestimate them. Miyamoto activated his powers and smashed through a huge boulder. The heroes saw this and, as always, began to praise him, saying that he was simply incredible. The commander can't believe that Miyamoto is such an amazing magician. Moreover, he has excellent swordsmanship. The others are also getting stronger, just like he wanted them to. This is all thanks to the Empire's excellent leadership. Miyamoto will be in the commander's debt. Onizuka swung and attacked the knight, causing his shield to break in two. The knight fell to the ground, and Onizuka said it wasn't too bad. He started shouting and asked if they wanted to get stronger. Miyamoto wished he was calmer, not so infuriating. The knight started laughing and asked, "Isn't it weird to lose to someone like Yudo?" Onizuka heard this and asked if this stupid mountain of muscle could shut up and train in silence. The knight said that if it was him, he would have defeated Yudo. Suddenly, Onizuka grabbed their faces and asked, "What did they say?" Let them try to tell him that to his face. The other characters asked him what he was doing with their mutual friends. Onizuka said that they were not his friends at all and infuriated him. Do they want to be next? Maybe they'll call him a bug, too. Miyamoto walked up to him and put his hand on him, asking him to stop. He understands why he's so upset, but don't let him blame it on others. He should save his anger for the one he really wants to kill. Onizuka clicked his tongue and ordered everyone to get out of the way. The knights thanked Miyamoto and said that this guy really annoys them. The other heroes started praising him again and said that the great Miyamoto was able to subdue even Onizuka. Akane saw Minace and startled her from behind, asking if she wanted to cheer up a bit. Minace said she was fine. Akane feels overwhelmed when everyone is trying so hard and there's nothing she can do. Minace is sure that Yudo is in the most pain right now. She doesn't care what happens to him because she thinks of him as a friend. So she would heal him next time, no matter what happened. They should not be discouraged because they need to try hard. Akane sighed and said that she was too serious. The black-haired girl looked at them and walked on. A man accompanied by two young men said, as expected of a wonderful hero. The commander turned to see Chancellor Dennis, as well as Secretary Dahlia and Lord Roy. He asked them what was going on. Dennis said his reaction was perfect. He reached out to him and told this esteemed hero that he hadn't seen him since the summoning ceremony. They have a royal decree. Would they like to accompany them? After that, they went to the waiting room and he apologized for coming so early, but they should get straight to the point. First, do they remember why they called them up? Someone in the crowd asked, "Is there a crisis in the Empire?" Dennis confirmed this and said that now, in the face of a crisis, he had received direct orders from the king. He wants them to finish off the remaining demons on the front line. Miyamoto asked, "What about clearing the dungeon?" Dennis said that their power is real, so the dungeons will only be a waste of time. Miyamoto asked the Chancellor what kind of demons they were. Dennis smiled and said that demons are barbarians who devour people. These are demi-humans who devour innocent lives with burning eyes. They are simply the enemies of humanity. Miyamoto asked if he meant that they were half-human. Someone in the crowd asked, "Do they really have to kill people?" Another person in the crowd said that demi-humans were not much different from trash, so they would easily kill them. Someone else asked, "But isn't murder a crime?" Dennis turned to the respected hero and said it was a royal decree. He would be grateful if they followed this decree. Miyamoto agreed, since it was a royal decree. The reason why they were called to these lands as heroes was because of the Empire's crisis. Isn't this a good time to make sense of it? The other heroes started shouting that everything was right and Miyamoto was right as always. Now they know exactly what to do. Dennis said he was a decent man and he thanked him for his generosity. Then they move on to the next topic. The remnants of the demons used the abandoned castle as their base. There was a thriving demon city deep in the forest of Dingert, and it was called Arganum. At this time, Melia was also telling Yudo about it. When she was little, she heard from her father that the demons who left Lunaria lived in that castle. He asked her what she meant by that. He realized everything and asked if there were any surviving demons out there. Melia said he was thinking the right thing. As a small reward, she gave him the same outfit as her own. He can't go around in rags all the time, can he? He thanked her and she was glad that he took care of his appearance. Melia thanked him again, because thanks to him, she would be able to go outside again and fulfill the long-awaited dream of the demons. She took his hand and suggested that they go together to the great forest of Dingert. The demon city of Arganum awaits them there. In search of demons, both groups head to this mysterious place. After walking further into the forest, Yudo looked up and saw a majestic castle. He can't believe the demon survivors can still be there. Melia looked at him and said she was sure they were here. Yudo agreed with her and asked how long they were still in Demon City. She thinks they'll spend 3 days on the road, if they're lucky. Yudo realizes that without his current skills, he would never have been able to do it in that time. A certain person appeared behind them and immediately started attacking them, but they deftly jumped away from him. He said, "So there they are, the loafers." It turned out that they were a whole group of bandits. The head apologized, but Yudo's head will provide them with a comfortable life. He showed him a sheet with his portrait on it and wished him a pleasant death. At this time in the castle, the girl went to the castle and greeted the children playing nearby. She knocked on the door and said it was Lin. She went inside and wished everyone a good morning. There are a lot of them today, and now she will go and prepare food. The kids ran to the pot of food and apologized to her for everything. She takes care of them, the demons, day after day. Lin asked them not to worry about it, because she helps them because she likes it. The little girl picked up a plate and asked if she could eat it. She really doesn't know how to thank them enough. Lin said they didn't owe her anything. The Dragon Nation and the Demon Nation are allies. After the tragedy in the capital, the Empire's hand soon reached out to Demon City. They barely survived, but they can only live in secret in this abandoned castle. They can't even go out into the forest without a fight, so they can't express their gratitude to her. Lin says that when she was a child, she was very well treated by demons. That's why she knows them so well. They're not bad, but people destroy them. Until that day, when the world understands this, she wants to give her strength for it. The kids ran up to Sister Lin, and one of them, embarrassed, tried to tell her something. His friends egged him on and he still said that he would become strong enough to protect her. When he grew up, would she be his wife? He was terribly embarrassed, but she patted his head and said that of course she would look forward to it. He will become the most beautiful man in the world. An old lady came up to them and remembered the words about allies. She's sure the Dragon Nation still thinks so. Suddenly there was a knock on the door and Lin greeted Mr. Warlow with a smile on her face. "Dinner is already ready, let him sit down at the table while the food is still warm." Unexpectedly for everyone, Mr. Warlow's head fell to the floor and they were dumbfounded by what they saw. A squad of heroes has finally found the monsters that coveted the Empire. They will destroy every single one of them. Immediately after, they cut down the demons behind Lin. She didn't even have time to do anything and shouted to the others to run because these are the Empire's people. The heroes giggled and said it was the turn of these martyrs. They were having fun and counting their victims as if competing to see who had the most. Lin looked at the head of one of the boys and dropped a tear. She immediately approached Miyamoto and attacked him. He saw her horns and asked if she was a demon. It doesn't apply to her, so she has to leave or she'll die too. Lin told those assholes to shut up. Why did they even come here? How dare they take the lives of innocents? Miyamoto asked, "Innocents? They are barbarians and cannibals, and being alive is a crime for them." Lin asked what they were doing. The hero asked the other to wait, because they are ordinary children. The girl from the Empire said it meant they were easy to kill, right? The girl tried to dissuade her, because even if they are monsters, they are still children. She didn't listen to her and ordered her to finish. That's why she can't even find a boyfriend. She swung her sword, but Lin cut off her arm with a single jerk, and then she started screaming at the top of her lungs. Her colleague immediately ran up to her and asked if she was okay. Tsubame started coughing up blood and said she was in pain. The girl asked her not to worry because Menes will soon cure her. Menes immediately ran up to her and started treating her, and Miyamoto asked this monster how many people she still wanted to hurt. He began to recount her crimes, aiding the demons, attacking the Imperial Army, mutiny, and so on. That's why he's going to kill her. Lin asked how brave they were. They are just ordinary killers and monsters. At this time, Yudo turned to Melia and said that maybe they were just random bandits. The bandits ordered these brats to stop and said that it looked like their partners were too stretched out. They decided that this was their chance and they would split the reward among themselves. Yudo and Melia didn't listen to them and went further towards the castle, thus shocking the bandits. The bandits continued to shout after them, and they sighed heavily. Immediately after that, they beat up the bandits, who continued to mumble something about money. Yudo asked what if there really were survivors. She thought for just a second and said that in that case, they needed to talk to them. They finally arrived in Arganum, the city of demons. Melia shouted to Yudo to hurry up, because the demons might be attacked at any moment, and they, as the royal family, can't just stand there and watch. Gathering their resolve, they rushed forward towards the castle. Meanwhile, Lin and the other demons were listening to Miyamoto tell them that they were aggressive monsters. He bears the pain and sorrow of several lost lives and will destroy them with his sword. His sword shone and grew in size, and Lin said he was talking nonsense. She threw her magic at him and ordered him to stop. He blocked those punches with extreme ease, and she started yelling that this empire was ruining their lives. He activated the explosive bullets and said that they don't kill for personal gain, which is only true for them, monsters. It's time to destroy them for the sake of justice. Lin covered the babies with her body, and Miyamoto ordered her to die and sent a crushing blow at her. A bright flash of light lit up the entire room, and Miyamoto was shocked to see Yudo blocking the punch. He just couldn't believe it, and Menes was overjoyed and rushed over to him. Onizuka started shouting his name and said that he was very happy that he wasn't dead after all. This time, he would kill him with his own hands. Yudo activated Black Burial and shocked the rest of the heroes. He just asked if it was their doing. Did they kill them? Miyamoto asked why they didn't have to do this. They are cannibal monsters and they are here to destroy them. How dare he interrupt them? Lin was going to ask what he was talking about. Miyamoto asked if he remembered that there were bears in their world. People often say not to kill them because they felt sorry for them. The characters began to agree with him, and he went on to say that the longer the bears live, the more harm they do. It turns out that Yudo is one of those hypocrites who can't see reality. He pointed his sword at him and said that he knew Yudo was dangerous. He would have to crush it with his own hands. Menes yelled at him to wait and asked, "They're all classmates, aren't they? Yudo is alive and she saw him again, but why him?" Akane came up to her and stopped her from speaking. "It's all right, and it looks like they won't have to worry about him." She gave a predatory smile and bit her finger, and Menes asked her what she meant. Immediately after, Yudo noticed that Miyamoto was charging at him. He told him not to be conceited just because he defeated Onizuka. Next time, let him make sure to die properly. Yudo repelled his attacks and the heroes began to talk about how Miyamoto was still strong even after fighting many times. But what kind of swordsmanship is this? He started moving in a completely different way, so how strong can he become? They definitely wouldn't want to be Miyamoto's opponents. He activated the explosive bullets and aimed them at Yudo, but he blocked this attack. He asked if he had decided to go on the defensive. Is it really that strong for him? Menes turned to Akana, but she again told her that it was fine, let her look at it carefully. Yudo is not even impressed with this fight and Miyamoto noted that he is stronger than when he was useless trash. Melia interrupted him and told him that he shouldn't continue because they didn't care about him. Yudo attacked him because he was talking complete nonsense. Miyamoto was blown up by the impact and thought that this couldn't be happening. In just one punch, he took it down. The heroes immediately scattered, leaving supplies and wounded to those who could carry them. Melia asked Yudo to wait and pointed her finger at the healing heroes. Menes was healing the girl and Yudo heard it. They were shouting at each other to get out of here, and they would hold off the demons themselves. Someone shouted that he could not take the wounded, and someone shouted for help to heal his arm. Yudo approached the healer girl and absorbed her skill, after which she collapsed to the ground. He approached Manasa and she asked him to wait because she is now going to cure this girl. He activated his absorption skill on her and she fell to the ground while Akane was stunned by what she saw. Immediately after, he healed the injured girl and left them. The heroes kept shouting for Miyamoto and Onizuka to wake up because they needed to get out of here. They clearly didn't hear their voices as they were shocked and injured. Yudo approached Melia, and immediately after, an enraged Lin ran out to them, shouting at these Imperials not to dare run away from here. She immediately started fighting with one of the girls and called them cowards for daring to run away after all this. The girl managed to injure her, and Lin sagged to the ground from the wound and shouted after her. Yudo came up to her and told her that they didn't need these assholes right now because they needed to take care of the wounded. He noticed that Melia was covering the dead demon's eyes. If her power wasn't sealed, and even if it was, it still wouldn't be able to bring the dead back to life. Yudo saw how upset she was, so he activated treatment and helped all the injured children. Lin looked at Melia and ran to her because she thinks she looks like someone else. Before she could finish speaking, Melia turned around and looked directly into her eyes. Immediately afterwards, Lin fell to her knees and started shouting that she was so sorry. She regrets everything she did. She couldn't protect everyone and it's all her fault. Melia held out her hand and told her that she was still a bit of a tearjerker. It is very interesting for her to watch this because she has matured very much and has become bigger and more impudent than her. Lynn watched with tears in her eyes, and Melia hugged her and told her that she had done a great job on her own. She is very grateful to her for this. After that, Lynn couldn't hold back her tears and started screaming because she was very touched by the words of praise. Yudo watched this with a smile, but later wiped it off his face. After the tragedy, they arrived at the cemetery where the demons mourned their dead friends. Melia built graves for the dead instead of the stones that lay there. They'll fix what those assholes did because that's their main goal now. She asked Lynn to step back for a few words, and they moved away from the crowd. She'd love to hear all about her. Yudo came up to them and asked what was the connection between them. Melia remembered that she hadn't introduced him to Lynn yet. After a brief introduction, Lynn began to say that she and Melia were childhood friends. The Dragon Nation and the Demon Nation used to be allies. The previous Demon King had protected them due to their small numbers. They are dragonmen and have been targeted by many species because of their small numbers. Everyone protected each other from external enemies and constantly moved from place to place. Because of this, they gradually ran out of strength, and Lynn also died in the wasteland. But unexpectedly, they were saved by the bounty of the demons. The Demon King saw the Dragon Nation and said that they all seemed very weak to him. If they want to, why don't they go and relax in their own country? The Demon Nation welcomed them, the Wanderers, with open arms. The Demon King had entrusted this land to her father, the previous Dragon Chief. Her father ruled the city of demons, and they joined forces to create peace and tranquility. That's why they, the children of the rulers, keep in touch with each other. Then, the capital city fell, and now the demons turned to the Dragon Nation. The demon city became a temporary shelter, but the Empire's hand soon reached the demon city of Argonum. At that time, Lynn was still powerless, so she could only run in fear. She recently returned to this land again. Yudo asked, where was she before that? Melia said she was at rest. Lynn started telling me that it was like a long hibernation. When she is in a dormant state, she has no magic and has not gone out during this period. By the time she returned, there was no one left but small children, the elderly, and the seriously injured. They were hunted, but those who had the strength to come here were already dead. Even though she fought alone, but she still can't compare to the heroes. Yudo only has sad associations with this word, heroes. Lynn said the demons didn't harm humans and didn't do anything to kill them for. She couldn't hold back the tears, and her companions looked at her sympathetically. But still, if they hadn't come, they would all have died. She is very happy that many of them survived. And by the way, she asked Melia, who is this guy? She immediately introduced him by name, and Lynn said he looked like he was one of the heroes, but that wasn't true, was it? Yudo reveals that he was called to their world with them, but they were separated for a reason. As she can see, the Empire is his enemy. Melia says it means he's on their side. Did she see that he was much stronger than those heroes? Lynn did notice, because they were easy targets for him. Melia reveals that he broke her seal and defeated the heroes. They are the heroes of humans, and Yudo is the hero of demons. It was a little late, of course, but she also found a way to fight back. She went up to him and asked, they've already done a good job there, haven't they? Yudo activated his skill, and a lot of creatures appeared around them, wearing the same robes as them. Each of them is unreliable, but there are a lot of them. Melia remembered that the Empire used this energy to transport cargo. Yudo says that because they took their energy away from them, many of the supplies remained, but that's just the point. This is kind of a byproduct, but the call should be very useful in the future. Lynn ran up to them and asked if they were saying that they could take away their skills. Yudo laughed and said that it was only temporary, but he would be able to use these skills permanently. Lynn is amazed, because it is a very incredible power, but the Empire calls it useless. Yudo wondered who was the first person to call his skill useless. The ability to attract multiple things is a very ridiculous skill for a hero. This skill is useless compared to the skills like healing magic and summoning that he absorbed. Melia was the only one who knew the true power of this skill, so she asked him to fight. He asked her if she meant to fight against the Empire. Melia asked, but he saw what happened before, right? This clue is based on the enemies they just defeated. Next to the dead bandit was a notebook with a photo of Yudo on it. They returned to the path to the Empire and realized that they were involved in this. They tied up the bandits, who started yelling that this was all they knew. They asked them to untie them as soon as possible, because they don't want to lie here forever. Yudo looked at the leaflet, while monsters were hiding behind the trees behind him. Melia asked him what they should do. Yudo also thought about this question and looked at this leaflet. At this time in the Holy Empire of Valencia, the rooms in the castle were filled with wounded and sad heroes, and Miyamoto smashed the wall with his fist in rage. In the healing rooms, healers worked non-stop. Akane approached the girl and asked if she was feeling better. The girl said that it didn't hurt at all and there wasn't even a scar left. She really thinks it was all a dream. Suddenly, she grabbed her by the shoulders and asked what would happen to them now. Miyamoto, who was angry, shouted that she was saying everything correctly and that Akane knew something for sure. In the first place, she hadn't revealed her abilities yet. What was she hiding from them? She asked him to calm down because she already said that her ability improves his vision a little, that's all. She glared at him and left, answering her own question. She had seen everything about Yudo with her own eyes. Do they remember what skills he had? Miyamoto said something about suction that just clumsily attracted things. Akane said that the Yudo she saw back then was simply stunning. She saw his vast array of skills. The characters were shocked because they just can't believe it. Miyamoto asked what she meant by that. She said that she had already told them that her eyesight was just improving a little and that she didn't know anything more. Miyamoto was taken aback because this guy is just a cowardly brat. Akane asked if he was talking about cowardice. The heroes were being digested, so does that mean they have to fight him? Why was he protecting the demon tribe? In the first place, were demons really cannibals? What does the Empire want? Minace came to the guys and Akane was very surprised when she saw her. She came from the governor's office and they started asking if she was okay and if they were pushing her. A man with a mustache came out and said that the group of heroes looked rather shabby. Their heroic skills didn't help them at all, right? Miyamoto asked who he was. The man chuckled and said that they should at least know the rulers of this country. Lord Treasurer and the next head of House Salisford, Malcolm Salisford, is pleased to meet them. Miyamoto apologized, but what business did the Lord Treasurer have with them? Malcolm said that he decided to share his wisdom with them since they had escaped from the remnants of the demons. He even prevented them from remaining in the dungeon in full force. Without it, they would have fared much worse. The other lords didn't think they would make it out of the dungeon alive, but he took precautions. He put his hand on Miyamoto's shoulder and asked, "Besides, they guys can't just give up, right? They are heroes who lost to a person with a useless skill." Miyamoto glared at him, and Malcolm pretended to be very scared. They would be able to use this power later, and he would tell them everything about the demon tribe he was with, its power, absolutely everything. Information is a weapon, and they may have already been killed by those he sent. He's already made sure that anyone with connections to the underworld knows them by sight. They will probably only be able to hide in the forest or in the ruins, so the heroes better hurry if they want revenge. Suddenly, Onizuka hit the pole with his fist and shouted at this old man to tell them, "Where is Yudo now?" He grabbed him by the shirt to tell him everything about this jerk. Malcolm motioned to his bodyguards and they started dragging Onizuka away, and he asked him to calm down at last. Let him stay where he is and he will tell them everything. Although, of course, he'd better learn some manners. He started shouting, because this is important for all of them. He wants him to tell him how that useless jerk with all his skills got there. Miyamoto says that it can't be that Yudo has such power. He used a cowardly move against them. Malcolm said that the Demon King's power is unlimited, but the Demon Lord was defeated by their empire 400 years ago. Since then, the Salisford family has a proven track record, so he will tell them how they defeated him. After that, he gathered the heroes for dinner at Salisford Manor to teach them about his power. He decided to start with the first dungeon they visited. This is the Imperial Labyrinth, and its true name is the Demon King's Dungeon. This dungeon was once a city ruled by a demon lord. It is filled with the enmity and vengeance of the demon nation and the magical power of this girl, so the number of demons is constantly growing. They were sent on an expedition because it was the perfect place to test their strength, wasn't it? Miyamoto asked about the girl, and Malcolm said she was the Demon Lord's daughter. It was sealed in the very depths of this dungeon. To avoid future problems, she had to be killed. After hearing about the girl sealed at the bottom of the dungeon, the heroes remembered that there was a certain girl with Yudo. They're sure it's her. She might have the Demon King's blood in her, but she's just a child, so it's nothing to worry about. Malcolm laughed because these guys were defeated. Onizuka put his feet up on the table and said that they only had a run-in with Yudo and he was the only one they encountered. Malcolm drank the contents of the glass and confirmed that the girl was sealed by the first generation of heroes. She can't show her strength. Hearing this, Akane definitely didn't believe it, because that day she had looked into Melia's eyes. Minace noticed that her entire body was starting to shake. They, the people, are really not efficient. Compared to demons, dragons, and various other subspecies, humans are very fragile. This is why the Empire has created several weapons for the survival of their species. One of these weapons is the Summon of Heroes. 400 years ago, it was the heroes of that time who destroyed the demon tribe. The power of more than 30 of them was combined in one person, an extraordinary hero. His name was Rei and he was the most powerful of them all. When a hero gains true strength, his offensive power can destroy enemy troops in one hit. Miyamoto asked, does he mean that they are weak? Malcolm said that simply put, it was true. He is disappointed that they are not even as strong as his private army. The heroes looked at Malcolm's bodyguard and remembered that this guy was only holding Onizuka with one hand. Onizuka started shouting that he didn't care about the Demon King, Let him tell them about Yudo instead. Malcolm said that's really part of the reason why they guys are so weak. Miyamoto asked what he meant by that. Malcolm explains that there is no such thing as a hero. By their very nature, they can take power. Ray the Brave was summoned to their world with extraordinary power. The hero skill that Miyamoto possesses is just a skill that Ray originally possessed. His strength lay in the ability to grow, to learn the skills of others just by looking at them, to become stronger and stronger. In the end, it was so strong that the world couldn't stand it. But it's okay, because in any case, all the heroes received a share of the powers that Ray acquired. They just need to combine these forces. Onizuka started laughing and smashed a glass with his hand, saying that of course all they had to do was study the abilities of others. He thinks it won't be too difficult. The heroes around him were surprised at how well he broke the glass with his Heiki skills. Miyamoto said he understood. At this time on the way to the Empire, Melia was too crowded and too hot. They all changed their clothes because they can't go out in public in their old clothes. Yudo said that wearing the official garb of a demon king was no better than them calling themselves that right and left. If Yudo had said it directly, Melia might have been offended. Lin walked over to them and whispered that she thought they should be more careful. Melia asked, weren't they only mentioned to bandits and thieves? It's probably safe for them to be here. It's been a long time since they went out together. Lin can only accompany them because Melia has placed a barrier on the demon city. Melia said that it was normal for the royal nobility to protect their people. She also thanked her for choosing to go with her. She can really count on it. Yudo saw the imperial coat of arms and remembered the bandits' words that the one who handed out the flyers to them was Malcolm Salisford, the Empire's treasurer. He's an imperial and money-hungry prick. He's even more disgusting than them bandits. He has estates all over the Empire, and they'll find out for themselves what he really is when they see him. Yudo thought about the Lord Treasurer, the Great Court, and what's more, the bad atmosphere of the people in this city. People who pass by endlessly complain about something. They decided to gather some information and ask around. After that, they approached various segments of society with questions and began to understand what was going on. As Yudo had suspected, Malcolm and his ilk made a terrible impression, even though his family is quite respectable. The Salisford clan helped defeat the Demon King 400 years ago. He had the ability to summon heroes and, with the help of the power of the first hero, was able to conquer the capital in one night. After that, the heroes continued to achieve success and became stronger one by one. Apparently, it was very popular among humans due to its absolute strength. But it seems that the upper echelons of the Empire considered the power of such heroes dangerous. Legend on the street says that the hero risked his life to save the Empire from a crisis. In fact, the Empire, fearing his power, set traps in the dungeons and killed him. There were even rumors like that, but Yudo thinks it's true and the Empire could have done such a thing. Lin said she thought so, too. It seems that Lord Treasurer Malcolm Salisford used his position and wealth to put pressure on the people. One of them was the Emancipation Proclamation. It sounds good, but it was really about taking away all the servants. He also took children out of the slums under the pretext of being saved by the reserve army. Children of residents of the city were also taken. She cannot forgive them for forcibly belittling those who have no power. They're all their enemies anyway. Melia said they could move on and even buy something. Yudo asked, but what? Melia asked him what he thought. They will buy weapons suitable for Yudo against the Empire. As they approached the store, Melia decided to tell them a few things about this world that they didn't know. Yudo noticed that they came to some expensive store, but did they even have any money? Melia said it wasn't a problem, since they sold the materials from the monsters Yudo killed. She got especially big money for the dragon horns. The salesman greeted his customers and asked them how they liked this weapon. This is their pride and joy. All their weapons are first class, and the sword and shield are made of strong iron, so nothing will even crack. Melia turned to the shop owner and waved her hand, pointing at the items they needed. They saw a magic tool for manipulating magic, but the vendor said that such power couldn't be obtained by mere mortals. To be honest, this tool was made in honor of summoning heroes. He showed Yudo the glove, but Yudo said he didn't think so. Before they knew it, Lin had already walked up to the huge axe and said it was really cool. Melia was interested. Is this also for decoration? The salesman was confused and said that he kept this weapon for the strongest hero. Melia immediately turned to the owner, but Lin tried to dissuade her because the price for this weapon is terribly high. Instead, Melia silently placed a huge bag of coins on the table. They have money because she sold the materials she got from the monsters in the dungeon. Lin was holding this weapon with just one hand, but the salesman couldn't even pick it up. He told the dear customers that their store was cooperating with the Empire, so they always had first-class products in stock. He hopes for their continued patronage. They wondered if that was why the lords used them. The salesman confirmed this, but Mr. Salisford's request is somewhat unusual. Everything is made to order for the craftsmen who work for them in the city. Weapons and armor that no ordinary person could handle. Melia asked if he could tell her more about it. They would like to see how the Lord disposes of them, just in case. Lin asked if that was what the two of them were here for. Yudo laughed and said that it wasn't part of his plan, but he was sure that Melia had brought them here on purpose. The salesman thanked them for waiting and brought them Mr. Salisford's request form at this time in the Imperial Conference Hall. Malcolm knew he had a good eye. Just in case, they're dealing with heroes. It didn't matter that he was heavily injured and stayed in the dungeon. They should consider the possibility that he survived. He asked everyone at the huge table what they would do if this was confirmed. Someone started shouting that it didn't matter. The Demon King's daughter was sealed, however, he heard that she was able to get out. Do they even understand what's going on right now? Malcolm asked them not to worry because that's what heroes are for. Dennis has already come up with something, and under his leadership, the heroes will become stronger. But still, Malcolm doesn't need to rely on heroes because his personal army will be enough for stragglers and little girls. Roy supposed he would need knights, but Malcolm said he didn't need them either. A deadly hero and a girl with a sealing spell on her, that's more than enough. He doesn't want them to underestimate his personal army. Dennis got up from his seat and offered to leave the management of the heroes to Malcolm, and he happily agreed to this. After that, Malcolm rode off in the carriage, laughing out loud and wondering how someone as unpleasant as the warlord could have ended up in Mr. Dennis's entourage. He surpasses him in money, power, wisdom, and everything else. But still, it doesn't matter to him because soon the title will belong to him. Soon, he was welcomed back to the Empire and asked for a report from the head butler. He hopes that this guy's location is already in the next world. Is he right? He's already dead, right? The butler bowed and apologized as there was still no report on the matter. Malcolm hit him and the butler fell to the ground because he knows that he hates such jokes. He spent a huge amount of money and people, but they still haven't sent a single report. What's going on with them anyway? He entered the manor and was greeted by his father, who was standing on the second floor of a huge staircase. Malcolm was immediately alarmed and said that he had officially received the mission to kill the fugitive hero. His father told him not to underestimate him. Does he know where he is? Malcolm confirmed this and tried to leave as quickly as possible. He knew they weren't supposed to rely on these assholes. They are stupid and can't even handle a sealed girl who is completely useless. But still, if it comes to a massacre, they will definitely come in handy. In the room, there were a huge number of cages, behind which various monsters were sitting. At this time, the party decided to go to the forest. Len asked if they were sure because it was in the woods that they were being sought. Melia said that everything would be fine because they couldn't stop because of such a small thing. Yudo asked why they came here. She replied that she was going to lure them in. They deserve to die, right? Yudo thought about it and replied that he didn't know the answer. She told him not to worry about it because he wasn't involved. She wants to ask them to help her get rid of the discontent of the people. Her companions asked if she was going to force the heroes to take on the role of Malcolm's hunters. Melia said that whatever misdeeds the treasurer committed, to make people suffer, you need to do it outside the city. Yudo thinks that heroes are almost the only people who can do anything. He can, of course, name some who might have pulled it off. Melia turned to Lin and asked if she was afraid. Lin said no, because Yudo was a hero, so it's fine. Either way, it's a decoy. Melia waved her hand and grabbed the person watching them, then pulled him towards her. That's what she meant. Yudo exhaled as he looked at the man's startled eyes. After that, he walked over to the person and squatted down, asking, he can contact the heroes, right? He doesn't care how, but he has to tell one girl what he said. Did he understand it? The Lord Treasurer plays with his illegally captured slaves, hurting them for his own amusement. The bandit immediately nodded and asked, is that all he wants to say? Yudo said there wouldn't be a next time and asked if he had any buddies. The bandit started telling me that he couldn't sell his friends. Yudo told him not to do it, let him tell his friends that they were going to deliver information to the strongest heroes, and the more of them the better. The bandit said that all his friends had marks on their bodies, and Yudo remembered this information. They released the bandit and decided to move on. They've already gathered information about the Lord Treasurer, so all they have to do is lure him in. He's certainly not the type to call for reinforcements in terms of strength. Meanwhile, at the Lord's Manor, training ground number 1, the heroes exchanged information and trained, testing their strength. After everything that's happened to him, Miyamoto is still great. He is talented and gathers more and more supporters. Onizuka shouted at those weaklings and said that they all had useless skills. The hero said that it wasn't their fault, and Onizuka continued to quarrel with them. Akane looks at it all by the wall and says that only some of them are motivated. Mine said it wasn't true and everyone was working hard. She will also become stronger and bring Yudo back this time. The heroes asked her if she still thought so. She'd better stop filling her head with such nonsense. Does she remember what he did to her? Mine said that she was fine and then she just fainted. They began to talk about certain rumors and slaves. One of the heroes thought it was just a world they were summoned to, but would they be forced to become slaves as well? They all get scared. They should also be able to fight if necessary, But Miyamoto is currently the only one who can learn the skills. Shouldn't they just follow him? Malcolm and his bodyguard came to the training ground and asked how they were doing. Is everything going according to plan? Miyamoto said that he gained several skills through them. Malcolm said that even with these skills, he wouldn't be able to defeat his personal army. Onizuka turned to him and asked him to let him fight his dogs. These fools' skills are useless, and if his personal army is so strong, then why wouldn't he pass on their skills to him? They can start with his bodyguard. Malcolm said that since he was so insistent, his bodyguard could fight him. He gave him an order and the bodyguard threw off his cloak, revealing his scarred body. Malcolm asked him not to kill Onizuka, who in turn shouted that the guy looked pretty good. He was going to try it out. Immediately afterwards, Malcolm laughed and made sure that he had the best army in the world. He knew this would happen. Onizuka held onto the wound on his stomach and coughed up blood while the other heroes stared at him dumbfounded. Malcolm suggested, how about he start managing all of them? At this time, the party sat in a certain dungeon and reasoned, are they really coming? If they don't show up, it means they can't afford it. The bait they used on the heroes and Malcolm. If they tell them where they are, the first thing they will do is come to them. Either the characters, or Malcolm himself, or maybe both. The bandit who returned said that he relayed their words. Yudo can assume that they've made a big step forward. The most powerful members of the female collective who influenced the characters are Ake and Sagi. Nelia said that this information was just in time for them. Can he tell them about the other heroes? Influence, combat capability, and their skills are important to her if possible. Yudo started to list, and Naoki Miyamoto was the first to do so. He was influenced by the heroes the most. Melia knows about his hero skill and how strong he is. But still, it's useless against them at the moment. Yudo also listed Onizuka Gen, the guy who attacked him. He had already mastered the Ogre God skill. Although it didn't seem like a big deal to the two of them, this guy was a real threat to Yudo. But on the other hand, Onizuka had been acting selfishly ever since he arrived here, lashing out at people from the Empire. Now that they are enemies, this is a convenient enough partner to bring discord from within. Both of these guys have a lot of influence in the Empire. Lin asked Melia how she managed to think things through so much. Yudo said that as for the girls, there are 4 that they should pay attention to. The first is Ake and Sagi, which he already mentioned. She says that her skill only improves her vision. It was obvious that there was something she wasn't telling me, because sometimes she looked very pale and clutched her eyes as if she had seen something frightening. She was always good at reading the atmosphere and getting into the confidence of a wide variety of people. It doesn't matter if it's an adult or a child. They found this girl interesting. She was the first to secure herself, and she has influence and skills. She will work on pushing Malcolm. Melia asked, what about the girl who is obsessed with him? Yudo doesn't know if this is true or not, but Natsuki Menes is very useful with her healing skill. But even more than that, her influence on the characters is also great, just like Miyamoto's. In the world they lived in, strength wasn't a criterion. Menes had communication skills. The last 2 girls are Nagisa Ino and Saya Kaido. Kaido is the swordswoman that Lin encountered. They are just strong, but they have little effect on the rest. To be honest, he thinks they're stronger than Miyamoto and Onizuka. Although the original world didn't actually require combat skills, but they did have special training. Even so, Miyamoto was also doing something. Lane is worried about whether they'll even come. Melia reassured her that everything would be fine. Lane asked, what about his skills? Yudo says that the dragon technique requires more practice and the water click is easy for him to handle. He sees the tricks in his head, but he can't understand them. Lane asked him not to worry because he would master all the skills in time. Melia looked into the distance because they can only wait. At this time in the Empire, Lord Roy stood silently in the corridor until Chancellor Dennis interrupted him. He asked what had brought him here. Dennis asked if they weren't close enough for a normal familiarization visit without any business issues. But still, this time he came with a specific request regarding the missing guy. They were able to calculate their location, but the finance minister was unable to track their movement. They also received some information and he would like to entrust it to him. Lord Royce asked, is it subjugation of the rogue hero? David said he was referring to the investigation of the finance minister and, if necessary, purging him. After that, he came to Misha and asked how he was doing. Malcolm chuckled and said everything was going great. He's glad to hear it, and said that the Emperor was very concerned about the fate of the runaway hero, so he'd better not screw up. And by the way, he had heard a slightly exciting story. Could they discuss it? He means it's territory. There's a conflict going on with the demons, right? Although there were almost no traces left of them, their bloodline should still be preserved, right? Their country also struggled to develop these lands. The strength of the Beastman was extraordinary, and his family demonstrated great bravery. The bloodline threatens the Empire, so it must be eradicated without fail. The very reason the Salisbury family governs that land lies in that fact, but rumors have begun to circulate that there are survivors from that bloodline, haven't they? He started to leave and finally said that he really wanted Malcolm to be actively involved in the McDisbury family. Malcolm immediately replied that of course he would do it. After Dennis left, he was taken aback by what he heard and wondered where this leak of information came from. Not to mention the Emperor's name. They must catch this hero, because if there is a representative of the Demon King with him, then their entire family will be destroyed. This is their only way. The butler came running to him and whispered something in his ear, and Malcolm laughed because he had finally found him. What an idiot he'd have to be to pick this particular one out of the entire area. It was once a dungeon where the family destroyed the hero. At this time, Akane looked up at the sky and said that she had done everything she could against them and had no more ideas. As Roy and his army set off, Malcolm discussed his devious plans with a predatory look in his eyes. These are completely different groups of people gathered in the same area to start a great battle.